Welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm sure you've seen on Twitter now that Bernie Sanders has indeed dove off the deep end and endorsed one Joe Biden. It is official now. And it begs a lot of questions. Did Bernie sell out? Is this the moment that a lot of these progressives that say they aren't going to follow him splinter off and form their own party? Or is this the moment that the Democrat establishment whips them into shape and tells all those young bucks that were leading their revolution to get in line and follow behind all the boomers in the DNC? We really don't know what's going on, but we are going to speculate. Cody, tell us what's going on.
All right, cool. So anyway, as you mentioned, it is official. Joe Biden has officially been endorsed by Bernie Sanders. He actually did it on a live stream together at the same time. Wow. Bernie Sanders implored his supporters to vote for Joe Biden because it's very important that he wins in November. Now, just personally, I have to admit, I'm not surprised. I get it. Yeah, like if you're going to say you're a Democrat, he says he's an independent, but he's been aligned with Democrats for a while now. If you're a Democratic politician and you want to have a future in politics, it's probably wise to endorse Joe Biden. I get it. Whether he wins or not, it's just you might want to play ball when they ask you to. So I'm not too concerned about it. However, I also don't identify as a progressive at any level. I'm not super, opposed. It's just I don't really consider myself to be progressive. So I'm not too upset with it. I wonder how the larger progressive voting base does. And the reason why I bring that up is, one, because I have eyes and ears and I can hear what they say. And it's not something that's very popular with the progressives voting for Joe Biden. But this was really interesting. Yesterday we saw multiple groups come out on Twitter, a lot of smaller X for Bernie, like Students for Bernie groups saying they would not endorse Joe Biden. But we saw the Democratic Socialists of America announce they're not going to endorse Joe Biden. But this article is a little interesting to me. This article is from the Daily Pennsylvanian, and it's titled, "Instead of endorsing Biden, Penn for Bernie will form a new on-campus progressive coalition." Now, it starts off pretty harmless. It says that although Bernie Sanders ended his campaign earlier this week, Penn for Bernie says it is gaining members as it restructures its original mission and creates new space for the progressive movement on campus. Although many of the group's members have decided they will vote for former President Joe Biden, which, by the way, I do believe there is a ton of people who consider themselves progressives who will probably vote for Joe Biden. Can't speak for all of them, but there has to be some number. Yeah. But they do mention that Penn for Bernie will not endorse him for president. Instead, the group will focus on relabeling and welcoming new members. This quote really struck me, though, and this quote is this. It says, "It was never about Bernie. It was about the movement he represented and the ideas he fought for. It took a few days to grieve, but our group is back at it," Penn for Bernie outreach director and college junior Emily Liu said. "We're preparing and are ready to continue the fight." And I wonder that's kind of the question I'm wondering here.
That doesn't ring true to me that it was never about Bernie. Bernie brought so many young people into the progressive movement.
No, but I'm saying if for progressive voters, what they're saying is, I'm voting for progressive policies and ideals. And right now that would be Bernie Sanders. But give me someone else and I'll vote for them. If that is what, and that makes sense to me. I've seen a lot of people who basically say that. They're like, look, it's not Bernie Sanders is God. It's just he's the only person running on these ideas that actually has some chance and is getting somewhere. I mean, we saw a lot of people endorse Elizabeth Warren for similar-ish reasons. You can argue about the bona fides of Elizabeth Warren as being a progressive. But larger to that point is, I wonder what is the divide? Are the majority of former Bernie Sanders supporting progressives the types that will just bite the bullet and vote for Joe Biden, or are the majority of it was never about Bernie mind? Because again, I just want to show you this happened yesterday. We saw a bunch of people take to Twitter yesterday, and I'm going to highlight a few of them in particular. We can see the Democratic Socialists announcing they would not be endorsing Joe Biden, which shocker, Democratic Socialists of America and endorsing Joe Biden. Almost 97,000 likes. And then we also saw that the U.S. Youth Climate Strike, another organization led by mostly young people, announced that they would not be endorsing Joe Biden, and that one has 79,000 likes. Bigger thing I want to show is kind of bigger than how big the accounts saying it are, the fact that a lot of people are supporting this idea. And I wonder, are these the Twitter progressives that made it so Bernie Sanders had no chance of winning? Because they kind of oversized it made it seem like there was a larger group supporting him than there actually was because of their outsized influence on social media. Perhaps. I don't know, but I just wanted to highlight that we saw a bunch of this stuff come out yesterday. A bunch of people come out yesterday, get their free clout by saying we are not endorsing Joe Biden, just to have Bernie Sanders endorse him today. Now, a lot of people are going to say, okay, I'm done with my temper tantrum. It's time to vote for Joe Biden and try to win this thing. Or are they really going to say, no, I'm a progressive voter, not a Democrat voter. I'm not going to vote for the Democratic nominee. If he was a progressive, I'd vote for him. But he isn't, so I won't. I wonder what that number is going to be.
You know, that's a really good question, and there's times where I would want to say that it's 60-40. There's times where I would I don't want to say it's 90-10. I don't know. In fact, we'd really appreciate in the comments. We know a lot of the Yang gang was our ex-Bernie people. A lot of people got disillusioned with Bernie and left him behind to become Yang gang. Other people have kind of just gone back to Bernie once Yang got out of the race. I'm really curious what the heartbeat of the burners are in this regard. For me, I always had a strange relationship with Bernie Sanders. I hate democratic socialism and anything associated with socialism. My family escaped it on both sides. And I think a lot of these young kids have no idea what it is they're endorsing. But at the same time, I always kind of had this respect for Bernie Sanders in his consistency. You know what I'm saying? That, like, you know, he's like the anti-sellout. He's been... You can look at videos of him from 40 years ago on that public access TV show, and he literally looks and sounds the same exact way as he does pounding the podium now. But I really was disheartened when he endorsed Hillary Clinton. I was really disheartened. Even as a person on the other side, I was like, oh man, why'd you sell out? But I thought, okay, well, the Trump era is such a weird era. People do crazy things. I don't want to call him a sellout yet. But now endorsing Joe Biden, I don't know. I kind of feel bad for the burners. There's people that have dedicated their freaking lives, dude, for 8 years to this guy, taking huge cuts in what they could have made in the private sector in order to push a candidate they thought was going to make a big difference. And that candidate just ended up stepping in line with the corporate Democrat boomer establishment that has screwed these young kids from the day they were born. You know, and I don't know.
But
any respect I had for Bernie Sanders just got crushed on this one.
But what's he supposed to do? Who is he supposed to endorse? I don't get, like, what is
No
Bernie
one.
Sanders? I get Elizabeth Warren, I do believe, hasn't actually come out and endorsed anyone. I believe. I haven't heard. She hasn't campaigning for anyone. I know that. So I guess you could choose to do nothing. But again, dude, if you want to move forward in the party, you kind of have to endorse Joe Biden.
No, you don't, though, because, like, for example, I think Scott Wilk is a phenomenal politician. Okay, I just think he's a phenomenal politician in the way that he has the ability to explain things and does retail politics. And I called him once to ask him about another person that was running. And I said, so what's the deal with this person? You know, should you vote for him or not? And I remember he said something very interesting. He says, I am going to vote for that guy, but I'm not going to endorse him because I can vote for somebody without endorsing him. He doesn't do the work that it takes to run a good campaign. And I thought that was very interesting. He said, I'm going to vote for him, but I'm not going to endorse him because he doesn't do X, Y, or Z thing that requires my endorsement. So why can't Bernie Sanders go out there and say, you know, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden because I want to vote against Donald Trump, but I'm not going to endorse Joe Biden because he fundamentally represents the establishment that is screwing the working class that I have fought for 8 years. I would have an overwhelming amount of respect for Bernie Sanders if he did that. And honestly, I don't think his endorsement changes much of anything. Okay. But the respect for him and his clout would be higher, and his ability to actually continue advocating for good, reasonable, progressive ideas wouldn't be as compromised as it is right now, because at the end of the day, despite all of his talk, 2 times Bernie Sanders is sold out.
Okay, but also worth noting that on this very same day, there is a very interesting interview published with one of the biggest Bernie Sanders surrogates, Alexandria OcasioCortez, colloquially known as AOC in this country. But she did an interview with New York Times, very interesting, and they ask her, they say, but I'm asking you, is there something you're looking for? Is there a difference between voting for him, Joe Biden, or campaigning for him? And what are the range of possibilities of your relationship with the Democratic nominee in the next months? And I think what AOC says here echoes a lot of what Bernie Sanders said, to your point of why he would do it. She says, beating Donald Trump is a matter of life or death for our communities. I think it's a difference between making an argument for harm reduction and making the argument for there's actually going to be progress made for us. What I want to do is be able to go out and say this is the plan for us, but it's hard to do that if there's no plan for us. She then goes on to say that I will be supporting the Democratic nominee in November. I would just hope that the nominee supports our communities too, on reference to what if Joe Biden doesn't meet some of the, or just doesn't rise up to some of the places she wants to see him rise up. So it's not like Bernie Sanders is alone out there. We're seeing other high profile progressives saying, well, like, look, if I don't want Donald Trump to win. I guess I'll endorse Joe Biden then.
Well, and that's why
I don't
but there's
love
been
it.
a lot of
I'd like to see more, but that's your choice now.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of to me, this is only proving my point, because there's been a lot of disillusionment on the progressive side with AOC since she's been saying that.
But I think the bigger thing is here, just the realism is there's the reality of it. You can look at it as the long-term progressive goals for the next decade or so, but you can also look in 7 months, there's an election. Joe Biden's name's on the ballot versus Donald Trump. Those are your pick.
Yeah, but
pick
wouldn't you
between those two? And if you how can you? You can't honestly say that they believe that Donald Trump is the most dangerous president, that Donald Trump is a existential threat, and then say, but Joe Biden doesn't exactly promote the right progressive policy, so he's okay. It's just I get it, dude. I don't see why he wouldn't. I'm just wondering how many progressives fall in line with Bernie and how many progressives say, as the first, we saw at I think it was Penn State, it was never about him. It was always about the message. And now he's moved on from the message. I'm wondering to see where that group goes. Is it Bernie's moved on from the progressive message, so we have to kind of bear that banner now? Or is it, hey, maybe the progressives do need to fall in line a little bit more with the Democratic establishment if we want to get anything done? I mean, this could be a really good moment for Bernie Sanders to show, if you guys want to get anything done in the Democratic Party, you have to start extending olive branch. I'll wrap up on this. Interesting thing I thought in the interview with AOC today about Joe Biden. It's in the interview she mentioned that she has never, ever once spoken with the vice president. Earlier in the interview, they asked if she reached out to the campaign, and she said no, and she was expecting the campaign to reach out to her more or less. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. I'm not saying it's what Bernie's intentionally doing, but that could be the other end here. Bernie Sanders could be showing to people look, if we want representation in the Democratic Party, which we say we do, a lot of progressives are aligning with Democrats. Yeah, we have to. Joe Biden's the presumptive nominee. I mean, it's kind of hard to say that you're a member of a party when you're fighting the presumptive nominee every step of the way. Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering, will there be a splinter of the progressives, or a kind of, all right, I mean, we have to be real with ourselves. We're not going to support Donald Trump, and
well, what do you feel?
You kind of have to vote for Joe Biden. Then I think we'll see a little bit of both. I'm curious. I'm curious to see the actual split, because there will be some split.
A movement requires a champion. Okay, a movement requires a champion. If there were going to be a third party created, there would have to be somebody championing it. That's why I said Andrew Yang was in a very unique position, because he was a champion. Enough people were willing to follow that I think another movement could be birthed. Now, he incorporated his movement under the DNC at the end of the day. But without a champion, how are the progressives ever going to start their own party, their own whatever? Like movements need champions. Okay. And I think that in the absence of the ability of progressives to rally behind somebody and a new party, there will be a default in which they just become the disgruntled far leftists within the DNC who excuse or justify supporting the establishment that they have fought against for 8 years under the guise of anti-Trumpism for the next 4 years at least. Without a champion, they can't start their own group, so they're by default they're not going to start voting Republican.
Okay, 1 second, keep this in mind. AOC was a unknown, and then she was sworn into Congress a year later. They happen quick. I mean, a person that we don't know about could become the leader of a political movement very fast. Andrew Yang was basically unknown. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast, change everything. He's the leader of a small movement now.
I prefer to think our podcast did it, Cody.
Yeah,
but
yeah, because I forgot that I woke up one morning and God just implanted in my brain the thought of Andrew Yang. No, but well, I guess I have to wrap it up, but we'll touch off on one more thing. I want to go back to the AOC interview. I just thought it was really fascinating how today, one of the more prominent progressives in the House did an interview with New York Times talking about Joe Biden and her feeling towards him, and then we see Bernie Sanders endorse Joe Biden later that afternoon. But this was interesting here. The interviewer asked her to kind of expand on what she'd like to see Joe Biden do more. And she says that they, as far as Joe Biden or the establishment, floated this olive branch to the progressives left of lowering the Medicare age to 60, and it's almost insulting. I think Hillary was looking at policies that lowered it to 50. So we're talking about a progressive concession that is 10 years worse than what the nominee had in 2016. Progressives aren't a monolith like every voting bloc isn't a monolith. But I also know from a Latino perspective, I think we need a real plan to be better than what happened during his service with the Obama administration. So yes, I do think it's something some people they hate in AOC all the time. I definitely think when people get on her for being kind of a flip-flopper and changing, she's a very effective politician is the way I look at it. In a certain definition, you can define effective how you want. But I think that's interesting what you brought up there, right? That progressives are not a monolith. You can't just say all progressives will do X or all progressives will do Y. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a splinter and a fracture. I think we're going to find out a little bit more, though, how many of these people are Democrats that want to see more progressive policies and how many of these people are just true independent progressives that have temporarily aligned with Democrats. I think both those things are going on right now, and it's one of the reasons why there always seems to be some infighting coming on the left, is because there's some people that are just regular Democrats. They're going to vote for Joe Biden, no problem. They would just like to see more progressive policies. But then there's people that are true independent progressives. They're not Democrats. They just see that if any party's going to advance my policies right now, it's going to be Democrats, so I'll align with them. Like Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders, I don't know if it is to this day. I'll see if I can pull it up quickly for you guys, but for months, Bernie Sanders had on his Twitter for years that he was the longest serving independent in Congress. Or in Senate. I mean, that isn't the kind of thing, at least in my opinion, that if I'm a Democrat, yeah, here we go. I think this is still it. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont is the longest serving independent in congressional history.
Wow.
If I am,
oh wait, no, yeah, but you've always viewed that as big slap in the face to the DNC.
I don't see, but that's what I mean, though. That's my point exactly. What I'm saying is, I think for a long time, Bernie Sanders was that. He was the true independent and just a progressive who was temporarily aligning with Democrats. I think he's realized more and more over time he needs to ally further with Democrats to the point where he resisted voting.
Then he just becomes one.
But he resisted endorsing Hillary Clinton for, I believe, months. If not many weeks, like 5-6 weeks, maybe 2 months.
It wasn't months. It was like a political week and a half, which felt like a month.
No, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks he waited. I could be wrong, but I think it was multiple weeks. Point being, he dropped out a couple days ago, and now he's endorsing Joe Biden. It's definitely, you can see a shift over the time. I just wonder how, as far as the followers of Bernie, how that goes as well. The brothers of Bernard, so to speak. What we see in that, and if we're going to see, as you pointed, are we going to see somebody kind of rise up into that stance of where Bernie Sanders was maybe 5-6 years ago, or 5 years ago?
It sounds like
is someone going to rise up and become that true independent progressive that there really isn't right now? There's a lot of Democratic progressives, no independent progressives. Are we going to see maybe a rebuilding of the independent progressive movement? I don't know, but very fascinating.
I think AOC could do it. You know, I mean, the qualifications don't really require reason.
She's gonna play ball.
They just require celebrity.
No, but she knows how to be a politician. She's gonna play ball and be a. She's one of those people that's either gonna flame out or be in Congress for 35 years. It's just she seems to know how to read the room, so to speak. Oof. So I feel like she'll be endorsing Joe Biden. I mean, we went through an article which said multiple times, "I will be endorsing a Democratic nominee." She couldn't quite hold her breath long enough to say I'll be endorsing Joe Biden, but she could say hold her nose long enough, but she could say I'm endorsing the nominee, whoever it is, which at this point is obviously Joe Biden. So it goes both ways, man. It is interesting. It's kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say a moral conundrum, but it is kind of that moment for a lot of people where a lot of people are going to have to make that decision, right? Like, do I support progressive policies or do I support the Democrats against Donald Trump? Or you could just, a lot of people probably rationalize it even simpler. I think we saw in 2016, there were people voting against Hillary. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that are like, I don't like Joe Biden, but I'm voting against Trump no matter what. So Joe Biden's who I have to vote for to do that. I think we're going to see that as well.
Yeah. So anyway, I really want to know what you guys think. Let us know in the comments below. Do you think this will result in a splintering of the party, or do you think pretty much they're going to gel and coalesce and everybody's going to fall in line? Let us know what you think the future of progressivism is now that the champion has been dethroned, shall we say. Let us know your thoughts. Put them in the comments. If you haven't yet, please consider joining the channel. It's a great way to keep this content coming to you guys and a way to support the channel. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.